So welcome everyone. Hopefully you're not too tired from lunch because I know the after lunch slump is real. So this should be short and hopefully will not put you to sleep today. So we're going to be talking about docs, demos, and DevRel, the other side of tech. So with that, I wanted to share somewhat the traditional path in security. However, I do want to point out that transitioning into tech is a valid path and is so needed. It honestly is just too hard to show on a graphic this simple. So please know that you can transition into tech at any stage here. But normally you start out with little experience and then you slowly work your way up until you kind of get to senior level and you kind of have the question to ask. Do you want to go into management? Do you want to be an exec one day? Or do you want to stay as an individual contributor? Do you want to keep improving, keep going to staff level? But my question is, why do we only have two options? Why does it have to be a linear path? So with that, my name's Kennedy Toomey, and I'm an application security researcher and advocate at Datadog. So I wanted to show you a bit about my personal career path because I promise it's relevant. So I did start out as a software engineering intern and quickly realized I actually do not like to code all day, every day, which, great. I'm so glad I realized that after I finished my computer science degree. But I was able to get an application security engineer new grad position right after college. That was kind of a unicorn job for me, and it really taught me that I love security, but I still get to use my software engineering experience. From there, I eventually progressed, became a senior AppSec engineer, and then I was kind of like, okay, what do I do now? I'm not ready for management, don't want to get to that yet, maybe ever, but I don't know if I want to be any more senior level than this. So I started at Datadog as a technical advocate, focusing on application security. So I'm going to ask the question, what's an advocate? But seriously, what is an advocate? So if you've ever heard of advocacy before, or if you haven't heard of it, it could also be heard or called developer relations or DevRel. Kind of depends where you're at. And this actually is a large part of my job, getting to engage with the community. And this can be in various different ways. It could be speaking at conferences like this. It could be on webinars. It could be publishing blog posts, but specifically technical blog posts. Or it could be creating newsletters, and that's what we have up here. So with this, I'm also able to help others engage with the community at Datadog. So I can help other people write blog posts for a technical blog. I can also help them speak at conferences, whether they want to do dry runs or they want a review on their proposal. I get to help others do things like that. This also includes getting involved in local groups or even creating an open source tool. So with that, I also help bridge the gap, and advocates help bridge the gap between users and product teams. And this is because, let me tell you, I know what kind of AppSec products I like. I have not only used many products, but I have gone and tested a lot of products. And I know what works best for me, but also, again, I'm in the community. I get to talk to other people who are using AppSec tools and products. And I get to know exactly what they like and don't like as well. And so I'm able to bring back not only my personal knowledge, but the community's knowledge back to our product teams to say, hey, this is actually what the community likes. And then lastly, I do get to conduct a lot of research and I get to publish it. And this can look like various ways. I can do it in blog posts, I can open source tools, I can present that research in conferences, and it all comes full circle. Now, I will say, I am still a part of engineering. I am not in sales. I am not in customer support. I am not in marketing. I might work with some of them occasionally, but that is not my role and that is not my purpose. And I do think that's important to note. And with that, this is another role that I didn't know about before I started at Datadog, and that is technical curriculum development. So I'm going to ask, has anyone here ever taken a course through a product? So whether it's a learning course, a workshop, a certification. I know I have. Well, guess what? These people, they create those labs and the workshops that you take. And not only are they creating the workshop and telling you exactly what to do, these people are also the ones who are creating the test site that you have to use behind the scenes. With that, they're empowering both internal teams and customers. And I say this as someone who, when I joined Datadog about 11 months ago, the first thing I did, I went to the learning course that our customers use. And I went and did those trainings, because the best way to learn the product was to do exactly what customers were doing to learn the product. And so not only did this empower me, but it empowers customers. And I know as new products come out, other people on the team do this as well. And then lastly, a lot of our technical curriculum developers, they like to go out and lead trainings. Some of them have backgrounds in education, and so they like to get in front of a classroom and give the talk and lead that training that they created. They also will sometimes go and help out. They might not be leading it, but they might TA it as well. And lastly, I'm going to talk about technical writing. And this might be something that you probably have heard of before, probably more than the other two roles. However, I don't know if I thought about it in this way before I was working closely with them. So first, we have the technical writers who you probably think about the most, who they're the ones kind of creating the content. Whether you have a product blog or any announcements that come out, someone has to write those announcements. Someone has to write about the product. And the technical writers, that's who does it. But there's a whole nother subsection within technical writing where they write the detailed documentation. So has anyone here ever written or ever read a product's documentation? Because I know I have a lot. And there is such a difference when the documentation is clear, concise, than when it is not. And I know we've all struggled through that before. So it really sets the user up for success when there is good documentation. Now, I want to call out, all of these roles that I've mentioned are highly technical. And I say that because I didn't necessarily think that when I started and joined the team. However, once I got to work with these people, imagine writing documentation when you don't understand the concepts behind it. That's not going to go well. That documentation's first not going to be written well, but also it might not make sense. But this is the same if you're doing a learning course. You have to understand what's going on behind the scenes in order to actually be able to write the course. Now, I do want to call out why these roles matter, because I think it's so important. First, clear communication is critical in security. Again, going back to the docs, imagine you go and get a product set up and you think it's set up correctly and you're just chilling for 6 months. When you realize the product's not set up correctly and you have hundreds of high and critical security vulnerabilities on an application that you thought was doing just fine. Well, guess what? Maybe if the docs were clearer, you might not have had that problem. Or maybe if you would have taken a learning course, it would have been fine. However, if the communication is not clear and if the instructions are not clear, mistakes like this can happen. And that poses an overall risk to your security program. Next, teaching these security best practices and concepts, this has a real impact. You could be focusing on teaching developers best coding practices, or you could be working with cloud architects on creating a secure cloud environment. There are so many different people that benefit from security knowledge other than people actually in security. So it has such an impact on others. And then lastly, you are able to influence the product and the policy. And I say this because imagine you're writing docs or creating a learning course where you actually, you're creating the learning course where there are 10 steps to actually get to the vulnerabilities. Well, what if you went to the product team and said, hey, this is just way too many clicks. I can't find the actual vulnerabilities. Can we condense it? Can we simplify this process? So, are you interested in making the leap? I'm here today to just give you options. If these aren't the types of roles for you, that is okay. But I didn't really know about these roles before I started at Datadog, so I wanted to just make y'all aware of possibilities. But there are a lot of skills that you can work on if you are interested in transitioning into one of these types of roles. First, writing. Now, this is where I personally needed the most growth. You can create a blog and start posting, but that's quite big. That's scary. And guess what? You actually have to start posting, because I know I have created many a draft and they don't actually get posted anywhere. They just stay in my drafts. So you have to actually take that step. And again, I'm guilty of it. However, if that's too big, maybe start small. Start on LinkedIn, where the risk is a little lower. Create just a little blurb of content. And it could be any kind of social media site that you prefer. But again, start with low-risk things, and you can work your way up and work on creating writing that is technical, clear, and concise. Next is public speaking. And I think this is probably what most people find the scariest. What I did, I started at a small local conference where there were maybe 100 people, and I had a 5-minute lightning talk. Now, this was perfect for me. It excited me, I really enjoyed it, and this made me want to do it more in the future. So that's what I did. I then went to a slightly bigger local conference, and now I'm going to be honest, my area doesn't have a lot of local conferences. Those were the 2 that we had, and guess what? They only come to my area every few years. So if you don't have that option, there are different local meetups that happen depending where you live, but also YouTube's an option. Now, this isn't speaking to the public per se, but it also is, because you're still working to tell a clear and concise story, and you can show that you can tell that story, make it make sense, and you have a content plan as well. Now, the next thing you can work on is teaching. And personally, I was camp counselor for quite a few years, and I taught little girls how to shoot archery. For me, not much more is scarier than that. Even though there were a lot of rules and regulations in place, there's still 7, 8, 9-year-olds with a bow and arrow. So for me, this one, anything I could do besides that. But maybe find a friend or a colleague who's interested in being mentored, who wants to learn more about your area of expertise. And if you don't know anyone, if you can't find someone in your community. What I did, there's a local nonprofit in my town called Computers for Kids, and they were all about getting kids access to technology, and they would hold after-school programs. So what I did, I went and led a workshop there. We threat modeled a vending machine. Now, this was not a highly technical workshop, but they had fun, and they were able to understand the concept without really needing to know security practices. And then I went and did this at a local middle school as well. So again, you don't have to go to conferences to teach workshops. You can start small, because those middle schoolers might seem scary, but also, when will you ever see them again? They're not in the industry yet, and they might not ever get to the industry. Lastly, I want to talk about research, because this is the scariest for me, because it's so unknown. How do you research? Everything else you can work on, but research is kind of the thing where you have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, because you have to understand what you don't know and keep diving deeper and finding something that If there's a problem, how can you find a solution, or how can you dig into the problem more? And now I'm going to ask, who actually has time for side projects? Because guess what? I know I don't, and I get it. So use your current role to your advantage. Does your company have a conference policy? Well, maybe go speak. But if that's still too big, maybe just go to the conference. And guess what? Y'all are here today. Step one. Next, does your company have a blog? Maybe see what it takes to post on the blog, or work with other people to get your post out. Does your company value volunteering? Maybe this is where you can go to your local nonprofit or your middle school and see if you can lead a workshop there that will not only help you, but will help them as well. Then lastly, network. Again, you're all here today, and this can be done at any of these stages, whether you're networking on LinkedIn and following people who have the career that you want, or whether you're at conferences meeting people. There are so many opportunities to network, and I encourage you to do so because you never know who has an opportunity for you. So I wanted to leave some time for questions, but I do have different QR codes you can scan if you want to connect with me, get a copy of these slides that have additional resources that you can use. And if you want to check out some of my previous work or join our community newsletter, you can do so. But now is the time for questions if y'all have any. And I'll also find a spot in the hall after if you do have additional questions and don't want to ask them here. Or you can always ask on LinkedIn. Yeah, so I can share more about the threat modeling of the vending machine. So I took a course on threat modeling that I had done for developers at my previous company and took the same kind of background knowledge of threat modeling. But what we would do, we'd threat model a house, and we didn't want it to be scary for kids to show all the different ways people could get access to things in the house, break in, things like that. So we thought a vending machine was kind of a great middle ground where we can still show value of threat modeling without necessarily encouraging kids to go break into a vending machine, or it's not a scary thing for them. So we did a traditional threat model where we went through each step and we used the stride methodology and just kind of went through and decided, here are all the possible things that could go wrong. And they started to get real creative with it. And then we asked the question, well, how could we fix this for the future?
So thank you, because now what's coming up for me, I'm new to cyber, and I'm like, that sounds like something fun to do in my house. And you said you did it at work. Is there information or documentation from the DataDog website about threat modeling?
I am sure there is. This was at my previous company. So this was something that I was teaching developers as a part of like a champions program. I want to say DataDog, I'm sure, has something on threat modeling, but I can't speak for that.
Have you written anything on it?
I have not, but I probably should. And I think that's something that yes, put it on my to-do list. I'll work on it. Cool. Any more questions? Yes.
So a lot of the times the structure that you're describing is, okay, speak with your company. And what if you're in a situation where you have to kind of educate your manager, being like, hey, let me do this? Do you have like suggestions on things to highlight, things to offer to convince managers who might not already be thinking about these kind of things?
Yes, absolutely. And I think there are so many different ways depending on what you're actually doing and whether you're presenting research or ideas and you're at a product company. But I think the main thing is showing, like, being able to go speak at a conference adds to your reputation and your value. And so being able to say, hey, I have this idea, I've been doing this research, and I want to go present it to your manager. There are so many ways where you can say, this will add to not only my reputation, but the reputation as a company. And I think kind of going with that, you're able to truly, if you can add the company in as well, they tend to like that. Cool. Well, that's it. I'll be in the hall if y'all have any actual individual questions, but thanks for joining today.